What is up, everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the 3&D here on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. Make sure you hit subscribe below and follow our socials at the 3&D ETB and at ETB Network. On tonight's episode, we have a jam-packed slate for you guys as the James Harden trade finally happened. So we're going to go over the James Harden trade, what that means for the Clippers. Cooper Flagg also chose Duke, so we'll be going over his potential future with the Blue Devils. College basketball season will be tipping off this week, so we'll be previewing the Power 6 conferences and what to expect from every team, where they sit on the top 25 in the KenPom rankings, and so much more, as well as joined by some more news across the NBA and my week 2 power rankings. So I hope everybody's enjoying themselves. This was our final week without college basketball. College basketball is planning to tip off on Monday of this week. So it's going to be fantastic. We finally got NBA back. We're in the second full week of the NBA now, and college basketball is right around the corner as well. So hope everybody's doing well. And first things first, just as throughout this past week, by far the biggest headline that went down: James Harden trade to the Los Angeles Clippers. So James Harden was dealt to the Los Angeles Clippers this past week. He plans to make his Clippers debut this upcoming week against the Knicks, so that's something to look forward to. But all in all, the Clippers ended up getting James Harden, PJ Tucker, and Philippe Petrusev from the Philadelphia 76ers. They quickly flipped Philippe Petrusev to the Sacramento Kings, so they didn't hold on to him, in exchange for Marcus Morris, Robert Covington, Nicholas Batum, KJ Martin, a 2028 first-round pick, and 2 second-round picks. So the 76ers got a plethora of good role players, while the Clippers ended up getting Harden and PJ Tucker, which are 2 pieces that can end up helping them pretty good throughout the season. Personally, a lot of people had mixed opinions on this. I think the 76ers came up with a lot. I thought that they came away with a pretty sizable amount for James Harden. I didn't know if they were necessarily going to get all of that. They got Marcus Morris, Robert Covington, Nick Batum, who are all good veterans, good forwards that they can have plug in the starting lineup and come off the bench for them. I think that those are all good pieces. KJ Martin's a decent young forward. Then they also got a first-round pick and 2 second-round picks, for a guy that was just causing drama throughout the team. So I think that all in all, that will end up helping out the 76ers a decent amount. Will they end up being better than Harden if he actually put together a full season, didn't complain, and played his brand of basketball? I'm not too sure about that, but this also leaves the Clippers in an interesting situation. So you got Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Paul George, and Kawhi Leonard now. Big 4 out there with the Clippers, if you want to consider Westbrook to be part of a big 4. Is this team, if fully healthy, are they good enough to really compete and to really make a run? That's going to be up for debate between a lot of NBA fans. And it's going to be, honestly, I'm excited to see Harden make his debut this week for the Clippers. I think it's going to be interesting to see how they use him in the offense, how he's kind of plugged in, and the kind of game plan that they put together for him, with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George still the lead players. You'd still want to look at those 2 guys as the star players. James Harden's kind of a piece to is kind of like a supporting piece to these guys. So it makes things very interesting. So I think that I'm honestly excited to see what exactly Harden to the Clippers is going to mean, and if that really changes the tide for the Los Angeles Clippers and is able to help them flip their playoff misfortunes, as some people may say. So, and the 76ers as well, too. I mean, the 76ers ended up getting a decent amount of talent back. They got a first-round pick. They got 2 second-round picks. And, I think they're able to put together a pretty decent squad. They're still going to be competitive in the Eastern Conference. Are they still going to be as dominant as a healthy James Harden would help them to be? I'm not too sure about that. But Harden headed to the Clippers, and several veterans headed to the 76ers in exchange for him. So jumping over from that, James Harden being dealt to the Clippers, we had some other NBA news that actually just went down on Sunday. CJ McCollum suffered a collapsed lung. So CJ McCollum has had this before, but according to sources, he suffered a collapsed lung and is going to be out indefinitely. That's a big blow for the Pelicans, who have actually been playing really well to start the season. They're, I believe, 4-2 to start the year. They've been playing some good basketball. Zion's been healthy. The entire team has actually been able to stay on the court and stay pretty healthy. So it'll be interesting to see how long this will put McCollum on the shelf. A collapsed lung could mean a variety of different things, and it could be a few weeks. It could also be like a month or a couple of months. It's very difficult to tell. There's no real timetable as of right now to see how long he's going to be out for, but that's definitely going to be a big loss for the Pelicans. Especially if they're going to keep things going and keep things rolling in the Western Conference, which they've been able to do so far to start the season, which has been pretty exciting. Hoping for a speedy recovery for CJ McCollum, hoping that the collapsed lung gets fixed, and we'll be able to see him back on the court soon. And then jumping over to that, we got some college basketball news. So the number one recruit in the nation, Cooper Flagg, chose Duke. So Cooper Flagg had been visiting a few different schools. His final two schools were Duke and UConn. But the number one recruit in the high school class of 2024 has decided that he's going to head to Duke. Duke already has a bunch of guys coming in next year, as they always do. So this isn't really anything too crazy or anything that's out of the ordinary either. To be honest with you, I always thought that Duke was going to be his top choice. It seemed like things were like that. The crystal ball, if you follow that when players are deciding where they want to go, they always had him as a Duke guy most likely, or possibly NBA G League, deciding to go in the G League route. But he chose Duke, decided to go to Duke, and he's an exciting young player. He's from the state of Maine. You don't see too many basketball players coming out of Maine, but he's a dynamic player, big, who can do a lot of different crafty stuff on the floor. Kind of a similar prospect to Chet Holmgren in a way, in my opinion. He does a lot of the same things. He's kind of built a little bit bigger than Holmgren and has a little bit more of a down low presence, I would say, rather than handling the ball and shooting threes and all that kind of stuff. But Cooper Flagg chose Duke, and he will be headed to play for the Duke Blue Devils next year, which it continues an exciting class for Duke, and a lot of big prospects coming to college next year, and then the 2025 NBA draft. Cooper Flagg, as of right now, is by far the favorite to be the first pick in the 2025 draft. But we're got to get through the 2024 draft first, and that leads us right into the meat of the episode today, and that is our 2023 college basketball season preview. So the Power 6 conferences are going down. First things first, we're going to lead off with the ACC. So the Power 6 schools are getting ready to tip off their 2023 season this year for the college basketball year. And there's a lot that's going to go down, and it's very exciting. So what we're going to go over today is you're going to go through all 6 conferences. We're going to go over the top teams, give you little previews of their rosters, who to look forward to, my thoughts on the teams and all that kind of stuff. So first, jumping into the ACC, the preseason all ACC teams came out. The preseason all ACC first team was Kyle Filipowski of Duke, Armando Bacot of UNC, PJ Hall of Clemson, Reese Beekman of Virginia, and Norchad Omier of Miami. And the second team was Judah Mintz of Syracuse, Nigel Pack of the University of Miami, Blake Hinson of Pittsburgh, Tyrese Proctor of Duke, and Quinton Post of Boston College. The preseason player of the year is Kyle Filipowski, without a doubt. The most highly sought-after player in the ACC this year. He was a top prospect last year for Duke. He ended up having a very solid freshman year, but decided to come back kind of somewhat shockingly after possibly being a first-round pick in this past year's draft. But he's going to come back for his sophomore year and lead the Duke Blue Devils with all of the freshmen that they have coming in. So going from worst to best, all 15 teams in the ACC ranked at number one in the ACC is going to be the Duke Blue Devils. They're ranked number 2 in the AP poll. They're ranked number 9 in the Ken Palm rankings. It'll be John Shire's second year under the helm for the Duke Blue Devils. And they got several guys returning. They have Jeremy Roach, who's been one of their key backcourt pieces of the past few years. He's going to be a senior. Tyrese Proctor, who is a potential first-round pick this upcoming year. Good two-way player in the backcourt. He's going to be a sophomore. Kyle Filipowski, as we just went over, a sophomore. And Ryan Young, who should see some more time as a big man, will be a senior. So those are their 4 key returning players. They don't really have too many transfers coming in, but they have a bunch of freshmen coming in, including 2 5-star recruits. Point guard Jared McCain, who's the number 10 overall freshman in this year's class. Power forward Sean Stewart, who's the number 19 overall freshman. Point guard Caleb Foster, who's the number 24 in the top 100. And then power forward TJ Power, who's the number 32 ranked freshman in the top 100. So they got a bunch of guys coming in as well as a bunch of guys returning. So I think that Duke is going to be dynamic again this year. I'm excited to see their kind of mix. They're going to have a very, very deep backcourt with Jared McCain, Jeremy Roach, and Tyrese Proctor. I'm excited to see that. And then Kyle Filipowski in the front court. And then ranked at number 2 in the ACC, we got the number 13 ranked Miami Hurricanes in the AP poll. So Miami is ranked at number 13 after making the biggest run in school history, making it all the way to the Final Four this past year. They're ranked number 45 in the Ken Palm rankings. So a big gap there between the two, but Jim Larrañaga led the team to their first ever Final Four in school history, the first ever Final Four in his first Final Four for Miami in his coaching record, the first Final Four that he's made it to since he was George Mason's head coach back in 2005 when they shocked the world and made it all the way. So they lost a couple of key players, lost Isaiah Wong and Jordan Miller, both on NBA contracts now, but they have a key piece coming in. And a couple of guys returning as well. Matthew Cleveland was their top transfer. So he's a junior transferring from Florida State, averaged 13.8 points, 7.4 rebounds for Florida State last year. He was a big recruit too. He's going to be transferring over to Miami this year, which is huge. And then on top of that, they're bringing Nigel Pack back, who was one of their key players. Norchad O'Meara, who is all ACC preseason first team. He's going to be a senior. And then Wooga Poplar, who are all coming back. And then ranked to number 3, we got the number 19 ranked North Carolina Tar Heels. So Hubert Davis's squad entering his 3rd year. They're ranked number 19 in the AP poll. They're ranked number 17 in the Ken Palm rankings. They have a few interesting guys coming in too. They have a couple of big guys returning. Armando Bacot, who is a preseason All-ACC first teamer, who's going to be a grad senior. And RJ Davis, too, is also going to be a senior. Then they got a couple of transfers coming in. They got Harrison Ingram, who's a junior, who's coming in from Stanford. They have Cormac Ryan, who's a grad senior coming over from Notre Dame. And a forward, Jalen Withers, who's a senior coming over from Louisville. Averaged 8.9 points, 5.3 rebounds for the Louisville Cardinals. So those are their top guys that are coming over. Transfer-wise, and their top freshmen that are coming in too. They got 2 top 100 recruits. Elliot Cato, who's the number 13 ranked recruit, a point guard, and Zayden High, who's the number 79 ranked recruit, who's also a power forward. So that's the North Carolina Tar Heels. They're going to be bringing in, once again, they're going to be bringing back a couple of key pieces from last year, Armando Bacot and RJ Davis. Then Harrison Ingram is a big transfer they're bringing in, who was a former 5-star recruit that Stanford had, and Cormac Ryan, too, who was a key shot maker for Notre Dame over the past few years. Obviously, Notre Dame, we'll go over in a couple of minutes, but Mike Bray is out, and that team's kind of falling apart. And then ranked at number 4 in the ACC, we have the Virginia Cavaliers. Virginia is unranked in the AP poll, but they're ranked number 33 in the Ken Palm rankings. And they have several transfers that are coming in. They're really only the returning guy that they have is Reese Beekman, who was an All-ACC, who made an All-ACC team this past year, but he's going to be a senior. And then they got a few transfers coming in. Dante Harris, who is a transfer from Georgetown, averaged 11.9 points, 4.1 assists. Jacob Groves, who is a grad senior from Oklahoma, and Jordan Minor, who's a grad senior from Merrimack, who averaged 17.4 points and 9.4 rebounds while he was at Merrimack. So Virginia bringing in a few good guys. They're not a top 25 team, but this is year 14 of the Tony Bennett era. Obviously, they won a championship a few years ago. So they're, once again, they're planning on doing well. So definitely excited to see what they're going to do, and they're always a competitive team. And then the rest of the ACC, there aren't as many notable teams. The fifth-ranked team in the ACC is the Clemson Tigers. They're ranked number 51 in the KenPom rankings. They have PJ Hall returning, and Joe Girard, who's a grad senior from Syracuse, is the key transfer they have coming in. Number 6 is Wake Forest. They're ranked 73 in KenPom. Number 7 is the NC State Wolfpack, who's ranked 61 in KenPom. Virginia Tech is ranked 8, and they're ranked 65 in KenPom. Number 9 is the Pittsburgh Panthers. They're ranked 62 in KenPom. They got one top 100 recruit coming in, the 80th recruit, point guard Jalen Lowe. And then number 10 is the Syracuse Orange. Obviously, Syracuse is going to be a little interesting this year. Jim Boeheim officially retired. This will be the first year of the Adrian Autry era, who's been a Syracuse assistant since 2011 under Jim Boeheim. So he's taken over as head coach. They're ranked 105 in the KenPom rankings. Florida State is ranked 11, Boston College 12, Georgia Tech 13, Louisville, who has actually a bunch of top 100 recruits coming in. They're ranked 14 after their abysmal season last year. They had a terrible season last year in the first year of the Kenny Payne era, but they're looking to have a much different year. They're ranked 14 out of 15, though, in the preseason for the ACC. And they've got a bunch of freshmen coming in, but it might be some raw talent. They got a 5-star coming in, the 18th ranked recruit Trenton Flowers, but they have 3 other guys who are ranked in the bottom half of the top 100. And then Notre Dame is ranked dead last in the ACC, 165 in the KenPom rankings. Obviously, Mike Bray retired. Micah Shrewsbury took over as head coach in his first year, and after being at Penn State for the last 2 seasons. So that's the ACC right there. Once again, the top teams, Duke Blue Devils at number 1 and Miami at number 2. Miami making all the way to Final Four last year. UNC at 3, Virginia at 4, and Clemson at 5. So it's going to be an exciting season for the ACC. Duke's going to have a great year. Miami should be able to bounce back again. So be interesting to see what comes out of that. And now jumping over to the Big 12. So the Big 12 over the last couple of years has been one of the premier conferences in college basketball. The preseason all Big 12 team, LJ Cryer from Houston, Hunter Dickinson from Kansas, DeJuan Harris from Kansas, Emmanuel Miller from TCU, and Max Asmus from Texas are all in the all Big 12 team. The preseason player of the year is Hunter Dickinson from Kansas, and the freshman of the year is Jacoby Walter from Baylor. Ranked to number 1 in the Big 12 is the number 1 ranked team in the AP poll, the Kansas Jayhawks. So Kansas obviously is the favorite going into this season for a couple of reasons. They're ranked number 2 in the KenPom rankings, though. They have probably the best transfer class in the entire nation. So Hunter Dickinson is coming in. He was the number 1 transfer from this past year, obviously a star in Michigan for 3 years. He's going to be a senior now at Kansas. So he comes in to try to lead the way and become their star player. Nick Timberlake also was a mid-major star who's going to be a grad senior transfer from Towson, averaged 17.7 points a game over there. And then Parker Brown is another big recruit, grad senior from Santa Clara, averaged 7.7 points, 5.8 rebounds, brother of Christian Brown, who was on the national championship team just a couple of years ago, now a Denver Nugget. He's going to be headed back to Kansas too. And then they got a few returning players too. KJ Adams, who will be a junior, DeJuan Harris, also a junior, and Kevin McCullough Jr., who's going to be a grad senior. And they have one top recruit, freshman, El Marco Jackson, who's going to be ranked number 26 in the top 100. So Kansas, obviously, going into the season, is the favorite to win it all, the number 1 team in the nation. And rightfully so. I mean, Hunter Dickinson is arguably the best player in college basketball. He has been over the last couple of years, and landing him was a huge huge addition. And part of the reason why it wasn't that big of a blow that Bill Self wasn't able to get a stacked freshman class to come in. And they were able to return some guys too. KJ Adams, Kevin McCullum, DeJuan Harris were all key players for the team over the last couple of years. So Kansas ranked at number 1. Ranked number 2 in the preseason for the Big 12 is the number 7 ranked Houston Cougars. They're ranked number 3 in the Ken Palm rankings. But Houston, they lost Marcus Sasser. It doesn't even matter. Kelvin Sampson's entering his 10th year as head coach of Houston. They've made 3 straight Sweet 16s, including a Final Four run in that time and an Elite 8 run in that time. So they've been on top of the world over the past 3 seasons for Houston, and pretty much over the past 10 years since Kelvin Sampson has taken over. They've been absolutely dominant. He's refurbished that basketball program, and Houston's going to be once again on top of the game. They had 2 big recruits. They had 2 big transfers coming in. LJ Cryer, who was one of the key players for Baylor over the last couple of years, won a championship with Baylor a couple of years ago. He's a transfer senior, averaged 15 points a game last year. And Damian Dunn, who was the top player for Temple last year, he's transferring into Houston, averaging 15.3 points a game. They also got some returning guys too. Jamal Shed, who is one of their key players, Terrence Arsenault, and Jawan Roberts as well. And they have a low-ranked freshman, Joseph Tugler, at number 89. So they got a few guys coming in. LJ Cryer is a huge addition. Damian Dunn's a huge addition. So those 2 guys easily plug in over Marcus Sasser. Marcus Sasser is going to be a big loss, but Shed coming back, Arsenault coming back, those are all key players for Houston. So expect big things out of them once again. Then ranked to number 3 in the Big 12, we have the 18th ranked Texas Longhorns. They're ranked 18 in the AP poll. They're ranked 16 in the Ken Palm rankings. Rodney Terry takes over as full-time head coach now after the in-season firing of Chris Beard last year. He took over as interim head coach, and now he's the full-time head coach after doing a very solid job taking over Texas. When that happened, he used to be UTEP's head coach and Fresno State's. They have several incoming transfers, notable transfers coming in, and most notable one being Max Asmus, grad senior from Oral Roberts. You might remember a few years ago when Oral Roberts went on their run to the Sweet 16, Max Asmus was their leading scorer. He was their leading scorer the last several years. He finally decided to enter the transfer portal and up to a better program, and he decided to play for Texas. So he's going to be their leading point guard, might be their best overall player heading into the season. And Caden Shedrick is another one too, a transfer from Virginia, going to be a senior, didn't really play much. And then Chendall Weaver, who is a transfer from UT Arlington, averaged 9.5 points, 4.6 rebounds. Ethiel Horden, who is a transfer from UCF, averaged 12.3 points. And Zarik Onyema, who's a transfer from UTEP, averaged 7.1 points. So they have 5 big transfers coming in, and that's part of the reason why Texas ranked so high this year. They also have a few returning guys too. Tyrese Hunter is returning, Dylan Disu, and Dylan Mitchell, who were 3 guys who got big minutes last year. And then one of their top freshmen, Chris Johnson, who was ranked number 45 in the top 100. So Texas is going to have a lot going on, to say the least. They have a bunch of transfers coming in. They have a few big pieces returning as well. So they're going to be a very interesting team to watch. I'm excited to see them and see how they're able to compete in the Big 12. And then ranked at number 4 in the Big 12, we have the Baylor Bears. They're ranked at number 20 in the AP poll. They're ranked 7 actually in the Ken Palm ranking. So Ken Palm has them very high. Scott Drew's entering his 21st year as head coach of Baylor. They've got a couple of notable transfers coming in, Ray J. Dennis being the best one. He's a grad senior coming over from Toledo. He averaged 19.5 points, 5.8 rebounds, 4.3 rebounds last year, 5.8 assists. And Jaden Nunn as well, too, coming over from VCU, averaged 9.3 points last year. So those are 2 big transfers they have coming in. They also have a few returning guys, too. Jalen Bridges, who was one of their best players last year, is now going to be a senior, averaged 10.3 points. Jonathan Chamo Chachua is also coming back. He was injured last year. He's going to be a senior. And Langston Love, too, who is going to be a sophomore. Was a top recruit last year, but didn't really see much playing time in his freshman year. and he's going to be coming in. And then they have a pretty good freshman class too, including Jacoby Walter, who is the number 8 recruit in the entire nation, potential lottery pick for this upcoming NBA draft. He's also the Big 12 Freshman of the Year preseason. He's ranked at number 8 in the top 100. Miro Little, who's the 39th best freshman in the nation, point guard, and Eve Misi, who's the number 53 who's number 53 ranked player in the nation, a big man as well. So they have 3 top 100 guys coming in this year, on top of Bridges, Chumwachachua, and Love coming in, and Ray J. Dennis being one of their key players. So Baylor should once again be competitive. They refueled and replenished, but they're ranked 20 in the AP poll. Ken Palm tends to think that they're going to be a lot better than that. And then ranked at number 5 in the Big 12 preseason, we got Kansas State. So Kansas State broke out last year in the first year of Jerome Tang's tenure with the school. Marquise Noel and Keontae Johnson went on that huge March Madness run, as you may remember. Both of them ended up leaving. Noel and Johnson are both on 2-way contracts in the NBA now, but they're unranked to start the season, but ranked 25 in the Ken Palm rankings. They're bringing in a few decent transfers to take the places of Noel and Johnson. Arthur Kaluma being the best one. So Kaluma was a top recruit from Creighton, and he hasn't done a whole lot over the last couple of years in Creighton, but he decided to transfer over to Kansas State. He's only a junior. Tyler Perry as well, who's senior point guard from North Texas. He averaged 17.3 points a game for North Texas last year. And then a grad senior from Samford, 14.7 points, Quez Glover. So those 3 guys are all transferring in to Kansas State. They're also bringing back Naquan Tomlin, who was one of their key players, who's their 3rd leading scorer, I believe, behind Noel and Johnson last year. And then David Nagesson, too, who is going to be a senior, probably get a bigger role. He's a big man. Averaged 6.4 points last year. And then a few freshmen they got coming in, Day Ames, who's the number 58 ranked freshman in the nation, and RJ Jones, who's the number 68 ranked freshman in the nation. So they're going to be bringing in both of those guys on top of bringing Tomlin and Nagesson back, and also bringing in Kaluma, Perry, and Glover as well. So Kansas State's going to be ranked number 5. I'm also excited to see Kansas State. I think that Jerome Tang did a great job with that program last year, kind of put them on the map a little bit, and they're going to be interesting to watch this upcoming season. And then at number 6 preseason ranking in the Big 12 is TCU Horned Frogs. So TCU is also unranked in the AP poll, but they're ranked 30 in the Ken Palm rankings. This is the 8th year of Jamie Dixon taking over for TCU. They've got a bunch of transfers coming in, and that's kind of part of the reason why they're ranked 6 in the Big 12 in the preseason. Jameer Nelson Jr. is the top guy that they have coming in. Obviously, you guys remember Jameer Nelson played for the Orlando Magic. His son has been one of the best players for Delaware over the last couple of years. He's going to be a senior now this year, averaged 20.6 points a game for Delaware last year. On top of that, you have Avery Anderson, who has been at Oklahoma State, one of their top players over the last few years, averaging 11.1 points a game. Isam Mustafa from Coastal Carolina, who averaged 12.4 points, 10 rebounds last year. Travion Tennyson from Texas A&M Corpus Christi. If you remember them from the tournament last year, they were a 16 seed. He was their star player, 15.7 points last year. And Ernest Uday, who was a freshman last year at Kansas, barely played. He's also headed to TCU. So they're bringing in a bunch of transfers this year to help replace Mike Miles Jr., who is headed out. And the biggest guys that they're returning are Emmanuel Miller, who is a preseason all Big 12 player, and Chuck O'Bannon as well, who's a grad senior. This is actually going to be O'Bannon's 7th season in the NCAA. He first started in the 17-18 season. He played 3 seasons at USC and now 4 seasons at TCU. So he'll be back to play what will be his final year after averaging 7.7 points this season. He's also going to be turning 25 in March. So when March Madness comes around, he'll be 25 years old. Pretty crazy stuff. But with the extra years of eligibility that all these guys get now because of COVID and stuff, which is going to be ending after this year. We've been seeing a lot of guys like that. So TCU bringing back a couple key players. Emmanuel Miller is still their star player, but they're bringing in a bunch of new transfers. So they'll be exciting to watch over the next season, and be interesting to see how these guys' games can jump over into Big 12 basketball. And so the rest of the rankings, number 7 ranked team in the Big 12 is Texas Tech. They're ranked 43 in the KenPom rankings. The number 8 team ranked in the Big 12 is Iowa State. They're 31 in KenPom. Number 9 is Cincinnati. So Cincinnati is ranked 53 in KenPom. They're ranked number 9 in the Big 12. This is their first year in the Big 12. First year coming over from the American Conference. Number 10 is Oklahoma. They're ranked 48 in the KenPom rankings. Number 11 is BYU. This is also their first year in the Big 12. They're coming over from the WCC. They're ranked 36 in the KenPom rankings. West Virginia is ranked number 12. They had the sudden firing over the offseason of Bob Huggins, so Josh Eilert is now their interim head coach. Ranked 13 is Oklahoma State. They're ranked 68 in the KenPom rankings. And then ranked 14 is UCF, who is in their first year in the Big 12, coming over from the American Conference as well as Cincinnati. So very, very interesting stuff coming over from the Big 12. So excited to see that. They've been one of the best conferences in college basketball over the last several years. So I'm definitely very excited to see what the Big 12 has in store this upcoming season. And now jumping over, we got the Big 10. The Big 10, obviously, some refer to as the best conference in college basketball, but that can definitely be debatable. I think this season that's definitely debatable. But the Big 10 preseason All Big 10 team, you got Julian Reese Jr. from Maryland, Terrence Shannon Jr. from Illinois, Jameer Young from Maryland, Dawson Garcia from Minnesota, AJ Hogard from Michigan State, Tyson Walker also from Michigan State, Keisai Tominaga from Nebraska, Boo Buie from Northwestern, Zach Edey, the reigning National Player of the Year from Purdue, and Clifford Omarui from Rutgers are all the All Big 10 team for the preseason. And the preseason Player of the Year is Zach Edey out of Purdue. So once again, that leads us directly into the number 1 ranked team in the preseason going in the Big 10, and that's the Purdue Boilermakers. So Purdue is ranked 3rd in the AP top 25 in the preseason. They're ranked number 1 in the KenPom rankings. So Matt Painter is entering his 19th year at the helm for Purdue. And to be honest with you, I'm not a huge fan of Purdue heading into the season. They don't have many transfers coming in. They don't have any big freshmen coming in. The reason why they're ranked so high, I'm not too sure on, but Zach Edey is probably the main reason. I mean, he had a dominant year last year, averaged like 24 and 12 while winning Player of the Year this last season. They think that he's got a great shot of winning back-to-back Players of the Year this year, but he's their key piece. And if he were to go down, this Purdue team's not that deep. They don't have any notable transfers coming in besides Lance Jones, who's a guard from Southern Illinois, who's coming over. But besides that, they have Zach Edey coming back. They have Fletcher Lawyer coming back, who was a good freshman last year, averaged 11 points a game, and Caleb Furst, who's a junior now, averaged 5.5 and 4.6 last season for the Purdue Boilermakers. But I'm not a big fan of Purdue. I don't think that they're that tough. And I think the number 2 ranked team is a lot better. And the number 2 team is Michigan State. Michigan State ranked number 4 in the AP top 25. They're ranked 13th in the KenPom rankings. Tom Izzo, obviously their head coach, entering year 29 of his tenure at Michigan State. And they've got a bunch of guys returning, as well as bringing in a bunch of big freshmen, too. So AJ Hogard's coming back. He's going to be a senior. Was their key playmaker, is an all Big 10 preseason player. Averaged 12.9 points, 5.9 assists for Michigan State. Matty Sissoko is also coming back, one of their big men, averaged 5.1 points, 6.1 rebounds. Tyson Walker was one of their key players. Averaged 14.8 points and 2.9 assists. He's coming back, and Jaden Akins is also coming back. Junior averaged 9.8 points and 4 assists for Michigan State. And on top of that, they got 3 big-time freshmen coming in. They have a 5-star recruit, center Xavier Booker, who's the 16th ranked freshman coming in, and small forward Cohen Carr, who's the number 25 ranked freshman coming in, as well as power forward Jeremy Fears, who's the number 27 ranked freshman coming in. So I think that this is a scary team, and this might be one of the best teams that Tom Izzo has had in recent memory at Michigan State for the Spartans. They've been up and down over the last several seasons, but they have a chance to make a run and to possibly make a run at Izzo's second ring in his career. I think that their backcourt is great. They got Hogard, Walker, Akins, and then you got Cohen Carr who can fill in Matty Sissoko as the forwards, and then Xavier Booker could be your big man. Like I like this team a lot. I think they have a good mix of veteran players and young players as well. So the number 4 ranking in the AP Top 25 is very accurate in my opinion. The number 13 ranking in Ken Palm is not accurate at all, but I'm not a person who tends to agree with the Ken Palm rankings very often, so that doesn't surprise me at all. So then ranked at number 3 is the Maryland Terrapins. So Maryland is unranked in the AP Top 25. They're ranked 22 though in the Ken Palm rankings. It's Kevin Willard's second year at the helm for Maryland. There a couple of guys are returning for them. Jameer Young, who was a transfer from Charlotte from last season, was their leading scorer this past year, averaged 15.8 points. He's a preseason All Big Ten player. He's going to come back. And another preseason All Big Ten player, Julian Reese, averaged 11.4 points, 7.2 rebounds in sophomore year. He'll be a junior. He'll be returning as well as a couple of freshmen too. Deshaun Harris-Smith, who is the 43rd ranked freshman in the nation, and Jamie Kaiser at number 73. I think this Maryland team is decent. I don't think that they're that great. They're ranked number 3 in the coaches poll, but you could easily have Illinois or Wisconsin or even Indiana, I think, ahead of them. They should be a team that jumps in and out of the top 25 throughout the season, I would think, but they're not a preseason top 25 team, so I'm not completely surprised by that at all. And then ranked at number 4 in the Big Ten preseason is Illinois. And Illinois is ranked 25 in the AP Top 25 for the preseason. They're ranked 19 in the Ken Palm rankings. Brad Underwood's entering his 7th year in Illinois, and they have a very good team. I liked Illinois a lot heading into this year. They got several great players returning, headlined by Terrence Shannon Jr., who was their leading scorer last year, averaging 17.2 points. He'll be a grad senior. He played his first few years at Texas Tech and was a senior transfer last year at Illinois. He's using his 5th year of eligibility to play again. Coleman Hawkins, as well as a senior big man, averaged 9.9 points, 6.3 rebounds. He's coming back. Luke Good, who was a top recruit, who hasn't really gotten a whole lot of playing time, but should see a lot more playing time this season. He'll be a junior. And Dane Danger, who is a junior, averaged 9.5 points, 5.5 rebounds for Illinois this past year. I think that he is one of their key players as well, and he's going to be coming back. And then they got a few good transfers. So Quincy Guerriere, who has been hopping around for a while now. He was at Syracuse for a few years, was at Oregon last year, and now will spend his 5th year of eligibility at Illinois. Averaged 9 points for Oregon last season. Justin Harmon, who is a transfer from Utah Valley State. He averaged 14 points, 3.8 rebounds last season. And Marcus Domask, who is a grad senior from Southern Illinois, also coming over to Illinois this season, averaged 16.7 points. He'll be a grad senior, was one of their key players. And then they have one top 100 recruit in big man Amani Hansberry, number 69 guy in the top 100. So Illinois got a few good players. They got some good pieces. I like their potential starting 5. I think that Terrence Shannon, Quincy Guerriere, Coleman Hawkins, this guy Justin Harmon could end up being a good piece. You know, I like a lot of the pieces that they have, and I think that they could be a competitive team. And then ranked number 5 In the preseason Big Ten rankings, we have Wisconsin. They're ranked 20 in the Ken Palm rankings. They're bringing back a few key pieces, Chucky Hepburn being one big one. Junior coming back, Tyler Wall, who's a grad senior, averaged 11.3 points last year. Connor Essegian, who was a sophomore last year, averaged 11.7 points. Stephen Crowell, who was a junior, averaged 12.1 points. And they have their big transfer coming in is AJ Storr, who was a top recruit last year for St. John's, decided to leave after the firing of Mike Anderson. He'll be coming over to Wisconsin this year. So Wisconsin's another sneaky team. They're always in the mix, and they'll be exciting to watch. And then the rest of the Big Ten, ranked number 6 is Indiana. They're 49 in the Ken Palm rankings. They got Mackenzie Mbako, who's number 9 ranked freshman incoming, and they also have Khalil Ware too. So they have 2 bigs that it could be a dominant duo at Indiana this year. 2 former 5-star recruits. Khalil Ware was a 5-star recruit last season. They played at Oregon, didn't really do much. And he's teaming up with Mackenzie Mbako at Indiana. And then ranked at number 7 is Ohio State. They got a few freshmen coming in, but besides that, a few just returning guys. Number 8 is Northwestern. They got Boo Buie coming back. Number 9 is Iowa. They're ranked 50 in the Ken Palm rankings. Number 10 is Rutgers. They're ranked 59 in the Ken Palm rankings. Number 11 is Michigan, ranked 44 in Ken Palm. Number 12 is Nebraska, ranked 58. Number 13 is Penn State, ranked 85. And then dead last in the Big Ten, we have the number 14 ranked Minnesota Golden Gophers, who are ranked 112 in the Ken Palm rankings. Their real key piece is Dawson Garcia, who's a senior big man, averaged 15.3 points, 6.7 rebounds last season. So that's really their key piece threat heading into this season. So that's the Big Ten right there. There's a lot to be desired, I think, in the Big Ten. I'm not too sure that they're going to be such a dynamic conference. Really, the only teams that I love in the Big Ten this year are Michigan State and Illinois. Those are the only 2 teams that I really see making too much of a push. I'm not a big fan of Purdue. I'm really not. And I don't know if they're going to be as dominant as people think, and they're going to live up to being the number 1 ranked team in the entire conference in the Big Ten. So that wraps it up for our college basketball preview. Got a few conferences left, but we're going to save those for next week. We're going to split it into 2 parts, going more in depth on the Big East, the Pac-12, and the SEC heading into next season. So jumping over from that, we're going to check out some of the top college games of the week before we head into the Week 2 power rankings for the NBA. So the top college games of the week. The season tips off on Monday for the college basketball season. Now, there aren't too many huge games. Obviously, the first couple of weeks of the college basketball season, it's a lot of good teams against bad teams, as we see every single year. But the top game on Monday, which will lead us off, is Princeton at Rutgers, which is Monday at 7:00 on Peacock. So I kind of circled this game for a couple of reasons. Rutgers, I think, could be a kind of sneaky team this year. Clifford Omarui is an interesting young big. And Princeton made a good run at the tournament last year, and I liked what I saw from them. So I think it'll be interesting to see their first game of the season. And then also on Monday, we have Monday at 8:00 on ESPN Plus. We have NC Central at number 1 Kansas. So only reason why this is probably going to be a blowout game. Only reason why I have this circled is it's the opening game for the number 1 ranked team in the country, the Kansas Jayhawks. So you'll see the debut of Hunter Dickinson and the rest of that Kansas team. So even though this game will be a blowout, I'll definitely be tuning in just to, see how that team looks and putting it all together. And then on Tuesday at 9:00 on ESPN, we got Auburn taking on number 20 Baylor. So this is actually going to be a pretty good game. So we got Auburn, who's unranked, one of the powerhouses of the SEC over the past few seasons, Shania Broom being their star player, with number 20 ranked Baylor. So this is one of the few games this week that are actually 2 Power 6 conference teams playing against each other. And then on Wednesday at 7, which is not on television, but it's still a game that I'm going to be keeping an eye on the box score. Number 10, Florida Atlantic at Loyola Chicago. So Florida Atlantic had a historic run in the tournament last year. They made it all the way to the Final Four, obviously. And they're bringing pretty much everybody back. They got Janelle Davis coming back. They're going to be probably just as good as they were last year, and they're ranked number 10 in the top 25 in the preseason. So that's their opening night against Loyola Chicago. So that's going to be an interesting one to look out for. It's not on TV as of right now, so there's not going to be a way to watch it, but I'm still going to be keep an eye on that score for sure. And then easily the best game of the week in college basketball. Friday night at 7 o'clock on ESPN2, we have the number 12 ranked Arizona versus number 2 ranked Duke Blue Devils. So this is the only game of 2 ranked teams playing against each other this week. This is going to be a really good game. I'm excited to see this. Caleb Love and Arizona will be going over Arizona next week when we go over the Pac-12, taking on number 2 Duke. And Duke's going to be a powerhouse this season. I like what I've seen from Arizona. I like them heading into the season as well, so I'm excited for this game. And then also Friday at 7 o'clock on Peacock, we have number 15 ranked Texas A&M at Ohio State. So Texas A&M is a highly sought-after team this year. They're bringing back a lot of their players from last year when they were quietly competitive. So this should be a pretty interesting game, in my opinion. Actually, I'm looking forward to this a lot. It's at the exact same time as Arizona Duke. So if you got 2 TVs, definitely tune one in on one and another on the other. And then Friday at 9 o'clock on Peacock, we have number 9 Tennessee taking on Wisconsin. So this is also a good game. It's another, as the last 2 games also were, it's a battle of 2 Power 6 schools. So Tennessee ranked number 9 in the preseason. They should be a good team heading into this year, and they'll be taking on Wisconsin. Then the final game to watch out for this week is also Friday night at 9 o'clock on ESPN+. We have number 17 ranked San Diego State taking on BYU. BYU is a brand new team in the Big 12 this year. San Diego State is still in the Mountain West, but they made that historic run to the Final Four and then the college basketball finals last season, where they ended up falling short to UConn. But San Diego State will be interesting to see their team come back and where they're going to rank this season, how dominant they'll be. So those are the top college games of the week. Next week, obviously, it's a light week heading into the season. A lot of bad teams playing against good teams. We'll be previewing the other 3 Power 6 schools next week, and we'll be giving you an even better slate of games heading into next week. So that's something to look forward to. And rounding out the show, we'll be going over my week 2 NBA power rankings. So we'll jump. I know we're going NBA to college basketball, back to NBA, but have to end off the show with the week 2 power rankings. This week 2 of the NBA season has been intense. We've seen the beginning of the play-in tournament, which is a completely different beast, not one that I like at all. But we went over that last episode. We'll be going over that plenty of in-depth over the upcoming few episodes too. But leading things off at number 5, I've got the Orlando Magic. So the Orlando Magic are 4-2 this season. They lost to the Lakers and Clippers, but they beat the Jazz and the Lakers as well this past week. So they were 2-0 heading into the week. I had them in my top 5 last week. Even though they went 2-2 this past week, I still have them in my top 5 because I just like what I've seen from them. Franz Wagner's been off to a great start, averaging 19.8 points, 5.7 rebounds. Paolo Banchero is averaging 17.5 and 6.2. You've got 4 other guys averaging 10-plus points, and Cole Anthony, Markelle Fultz, Mo Wagner, and Jalen Suggs. I just like what I've seen from the Orlando Magic. They have a good young core, and they're proving that they're next up in the NBA. I'm excited to see what kind of season we're going to get out of them. We might get a sneaky season where they make a deep push into the playoffs or something like that. It's not saying they make it deep into the playoffs, but they make a push into the play-in tournament or even being a better team than the play-in tournament. And this week they'll be taking on Dallas Mavericks on Monday, the Atlanta Hawks on Thursday, and the Milwaukee Bucks on Saturday, all home games. Then ranked at number 4, we have the Dallas Mavericks. Mainly for one reason why they're still in the top 5 is Luka Doncic. They're 4-1 now to start the season. This past week. They beat Memphis and Chicago, and they lost to Denver. So they went 2-1 this past week. But they're 4-1 on the season. Luka is probably the favorite to win MVP as of right now. He's been completely going off to start the season. 33.8 points, 10.4 rebounds, 9.4 assists. Kyrie Irving has also had a decent start to the season, but he's only played in 3 games in typical Kyrie fashion. But he's averaging 20.3 points, 6.3 assists. Grant Williams has also been a good pickup, averaging 15 and 5 for them as well. And this week they'll be taking on the Orlando Magic in Orlando on Monday, so that's a really good game. My number 5 and number 4 ranked teams in the NBA taking on each other on Monday. Then they'll be home against Toronto on Wednesday, home against the Clippers on Friday, and then in New Orleans on Sunday. So I've got the Dallas Mavericks at number 4. Then at number 3, I got the Golden State Warriors. So Golden State Warriors have been dynamic throughout this past week. They're 5-1. They've beat the Pelicans, Kings, and the Oklahoma City Thunder in pretty dynamic fashion as well. Steph Curry averaging 30.8 points a game. Chris Paul also started coming off the bench and has not had to score at all to be dominant. He's averaging 8 points a game and 9 assists per game. So you're going to see, as you've seen so far, a completely different rollout of CP3. You're going to continue to see a completely different rollout of CP3 coming off the bench. He doesn't need to be a scorer in any fashion. They've got plenty of those. He just needs to be the facilitator off the bench, and that's what he's been doing. So I'm excited about this Golden State team, honestly. I think that they've been off to a great start, and they look a lot better than they did last year. I mean, Draymond Green came out and said that they have better chemistry this year, and basically was throwing shade at Jordan Poole. Now that they got rid of him, that they have better chemistry. But in a way, I do think he's right. This team does. There was something that just wasn't right about them last year. And after winning the NBA Finals in 2022, they just couldn't. They ended up making a decent run in the playoffs and had a good season, but they just did not look like the same team. They look like that team once again. And if they continue to play like this, they could easily be the favorites to come out of the West. So I like them a lot. They're ranked number 3. Then number 2, I got the Boston Celtics. Celtics still are without a loss. They're 5-0. They beat the Wizards, Pacers, and the Nets this past week. They beat the Pacers in butt-kicking fashion, 155-104. Put up 155 points in just 4 quarters. An absolutely stellar season so far from Jason Tatum, averaging 30.2 points, 9.6 rebounds. Kristaps Porzingis has jumped in and become a stud for them, averaging 19.4 points, 7.2 rebounds, and 1.8 blocks. And Drew Holiday as well has been a key piece for them. He doesn't have to do much of the scoring. You know, he averaged nearly 20 points a game last year because he was one of the key scorers for Milwaukee, but he's averaging 14.7 rebounds, 5.2 assists, and 1.6 blocks. So he's primarily focusing on defense, and I think that's where they're at their best. And they're easily the best team in the Eastern Conference. There's no doubt about that, especially to start the season. I mean, they're undefeated, and they have the deepest team by far. This week, they have a little bit of a test throughout the schedule. They're in Minnesota on Monday, in Philadelphia on Wednesday, at home against Brooklyn on Friday, and then at home against Toronto on Saturday. And Toronto's been playing some good basketball, too. So they've got 4 somewhat difficult games heading into this week. So it'll be interesting to see how the Celtics react to that. And then my number 1 team in the NBA, just like I had them ranked last year, last week, in last week's episode, is the Denver Nuggets. So the reigning NBA champs, I still have as the number 1 team in the NBA. They're 6-1 now. They won 2 games and lost 1 this past week, but it did not move my ranking at all. They beat Utah they actually won 3 games, lost 1. They beat Utah, Dallas, and Chicago, and they lost to Minnesota this past week. But Nikola Jokic leads the team in scoring in all 7 games. He's averaging 27.4 points, 12.7 rebounds, 7.9 assists. If Luka is not your favorite to win MVP, it's Jokic. Luka and Jokic are 1A and 1B right now. early on in the season to be your favorite to win MVP. I mean, Jokic is off to an incredible start once again. The entire team has been playing great. And just like I said, I've been saying for a while, this team is built to compete over the next several years. So I'm not surprised by it. And they don't have too tough of a schedule this week. They only have 3 games. They're taking on the Pelicans at home on Monday. They're taking on the Warriors at home on Wednesday. That'll be a really good game. Nuggets versus Warriors. I think that's on TNT on Wednesday. So definitely check that one out. And then they're in Houston to take on the Rockets on Sunday. So they have a big gap from Wednesday to Sunday of days off. So those will be interesting. But that's my power rankings for week 2 of the NBA season. I got the Magic at 5, Mavericks at 4, Warriors at 3, Celtics at 2, and the Nuggets at 1. So that's going to do it for this week's episode. I want to thank everyone for tuning into the Empty the Bench Podcast Network for another episode. Once again, make sure you like and subscribe to this channel and follow the socials at the 3&D ETB. We'll be putting out content all week in case you missed the entire episode, so make sure you check that out. And once again, hope everyone has a great night. Don't miss next week's episode, as we'll be going over the last 3 conferences in college basketball. Recapping some of the season and recapping week 3 of the NBA season. So I hope everybody has a great week and a great night. And make sure to like and subscribe to Empty the Bench on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Have a good night, everyone.